Small and medium-sized firms need advice on entering the fast-moving Chinese mainland markets. And Anthea Wong of PricewaterhouseCoopers looks at the ups and downs of starting out. So what needs to be in your survival kit even before entering the China market?
I think there's a Chinese saying which says that you will always win if you know yourself and also your opponent. So the first thing is, of course, to understand what you really want to achieve when entering the China market.
How is it you keep up with these ever-changing regulations?
Exactly. Regulations in China, they do change and evolve regularly, rather frequently. So it is really important to keep up to date and keep yourself on top of the latest development. So what will help really is to pay attention to what's happening in the regulatory scene in China, to talk to people. It will also pay off to communicate with people who are already operating in China, and sometimes talk to the regulators. Compared with other jurisdictions such as Hong Kong and Singapore, where company formation is relatively quick and simple, you may say that the regulatory road in China is in fact a bit more complex. It is basically because of the various steps and procedures involved when forming a company, and sometimes there may even be certain licensing requirements and pre-approval requirements in certain industry sectors.
So if you're a small company and you may want to sell branded food, for example, on the mainland, do you set it up in joint venture or do you go it alone?
It is in fact allowable for businesses to form wholly foreign-owned enterprises, or we call them WFOEs in China, in many sectors nowadays, because China is pretty much open now. Whether you want to form a joint venture or do it alone should mainly be based on commercial considerations, unless you are really in an industry which specifically requires the formation of joint ventures. Obviously, to have a joint venture partner, the upside is that you can leverage on the experience, the local network, and the know-how of the joint venture partner. So, for example, in the sale of branded food in China, the experience of applying for certain special licenses in food distribution would be valuable. But then the downside is that you won't be able to have full control over the China operations.
And what use would you make of Hong Kong?
Hong Kong is obviously and definitely an important gateway to China, with its unrivaled proximity to the mainland, very mature legal system, and sophisticated banking infrastructure. Of course, the list can go on. It is a good strategy to form a holding company in Hong Kong. One reason being that the double tax treaty between China and Hong Kong offers a reduced withholding income tax rate for dividend repatriation to Hong Kong companies which have commercial substance. Actually, the reduced tax rate is 5% from the normal 10%. So it is actually quite substantial.
So given the perils of small and medium-sized companies, should you actually have an exit strategy even before you've entered the Chinese mainland?
I think whenever a company formulates its entry plan into China, an exit strategy cannot be overlooked. When talking about an exit strategy, it only means the closing down or liquidating a company. On the more positive side, it actually means how to plan your capital investment properly and effectively, and also to look at the cash repatriation scheme on a more ongoing basis.
So do companies make a profit when they enter the mainland within, let's say, a 10-year period?
There are some companies more successful than others. Very often, from what we've seen, companies who are successful are those who plan properly in advance and who are agile, who react to market changes, who keep up to date of the ever-changing regulations and operating environment.